I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, into a single-parent family. Just my mother and myself. I would see my father every Sunday at church, and he would never acknowledge me. I never had an understanding as a child of why this was. It caused some rebellion in me. I thought that there was something wrong with me. You know, the things that I wanted in life to have a father and mother, as my other friends in the community did. It just made me act out. Joyriding, stealing cars, to try to show off and impress friends. And that ultimately ended up causing me to go to prison for the first time in Georgia. I still continue to act out. I still have felt the need to manifest my discomfort in myself and my dislike by acting out. And it got to the point where the police told me either I had to leave or Atlanta had to leave. And the odds were that Atlanta would not be moving. During this time in my life, back in the 60s, if you were a person of color, you would disappear. So the decision was made within my family that I would leave and come to Wisconsin. While I was out partying, I met my first wife. She conceived. And I had always told myself as a child that I would give to my children something that I didn't have, and that was a father. And it wasn't long before there were 3 children. Oldest son was born in 74, had another daughter born in 75. She died of crib death. That was really problematic for me because I had always wanted to have a daughter and raise a daughter. She was 2 months old and died of SIDS. And I didn't know how to handle that. By this time, drinking and doing drugs had become kind of a regular thing that I did. And I just found myself going deeper into drinking and into drugs to ease the pain that I felt from the loss. And obviously that was not an answer, it just created more problems. I ended up I got married in 74, got divorced in 78. Also, by the time that the divorce had become final, because of my alcohol and drug use, I had found myself back in prison again. Now, I was back in prison at this time for the 3rd time. No, actually, it was the 4th time that I ended up going to prison. But when I got the divorce papers, I sat in my cell and I cried. And I cried not because I was in prison or not because I had been divorced, but I cried because I had yet failed again at something. But my biggest problem was I wasn't willing to admit that I was wrong. During this time when my marriage was coming to an end before I went to prison, I met my second wife. But it was shortly after that time that I ended up going to prison. So I went to prison for 2 years. I got out in 1980, and then I lost my job. And I went into a depressive cycle. Didn't do much of anything, didn't have much desire. I was depressed. So the one thing that I did do was I started drinking a lot more. I had lost interest and desire about almost anything. I was there, I took care of the house, took care of the kids when they came home. Most of the time I just sat around watching TV and getting drunk or getting high. It so happened during that time that my wife had been sending our daughter to Calvary Gospel Church for Sunday school. And ultimately, we started to go. I found that I had stopped drinking because I had embraced this faith. I had been baptized. My sins had been forgiven by, the Acts 2:38 experience. But I wasn't willing to commit myself totally and completely. I did not try to find friends within the church. I went, I was cordial to people, and then I left. But I told myself what I'm going to do is I'll go to church, but I just won't drink. I just won't do drugs. And it wasn't long before I was back to drinking and drugging, and things just progressively got worse. Part of my lifestyle was I was a procurer. If there was something that you wanted in this city, I was one of the people that you would come to, and I knew where it was and how to get it. And for me, it was always, I took my piece off the top, brought you yours back, and then also double charged you for whatever it was. But that was the way that I saw the world and that I made my hustle. And a friend of mine, quote unquote, a friend, where I had been snorting, he turned me on to IV injection. I started shooting cocaine. So for about 15 years, I did cocaine IV. I took the cocaine and then cocaine took me. All the money that I could beg, borrow, steal went up my arm. I had nothing to show for it. I became a consummate bad liar. I would go to work for 80 hours, and then my wife, I'd come home, supposed to be home. I show up the next day. Well, where's your money? Well, I lost it. The car ran the ditch. I always had some bizarre off-the-wall story, and I came to the realization that I needed to do something.